Hey, what's going on, guys? It's History Obscured, and I'm back with another video. Alright. Before I start, I just want to shout out those that have been following my channel earnestly. I just want to take the angle of releasing content that relates more to me in terms of what I feel needs to be spoken on. And hence why I called the name of my channel History Obscured, because a lot of the information is not common information. Some may be, but for the most part, I like to dig deep into history that's not commonly spoken about. Alright? Anyway, going into the video, today I'm going to be touching on Libya's African migrant crisis. Okay? Now, this video here, I wasn't too sure as to whether I wanted to speak on it. But I said, you know what, I'm going to go into it, and it's something that has always pondered on my mind for some years now regarding Africans crossing the border to get to Europe, and Libya being one of the routes that they have to go through in order to get to Europe is, one of the main reasons why there is a African migrant crisis in Libya. All right, but the main thing that catches me and, infuriates me and frustrates me to next levels is the fact that many of these African migrants that are crossing the border in order to get to Europe are being intercepted by Libyan governors that are stopping them from crossing the border over to Europe. All right. And for obvious reasons, there is some racist factors that are connected with it, but it's corrupt. There's a lot of evil that's been taking place over the years concerning Africans and their mistreatment amongst the Libyan officials that control the borders. And yes, although it may not be the legal way, the understandable fact is that many of these African migrants are fleeing from their home country because they do not want to be in the midst of civil wars, or many of them are in danger of being killed due to the civil wars that are taking place in Africa. And aside from that, extreme poverty and just poor economic status in the countries that they're coming from, which is putting these Africans in a bad predicament. But it even gets worse when they cross over to get to Europe using Libya's borders, which puts them in a position of major exploitation. All right, so that's what I'm going to be touching on today. All right, now going back to Libya, Libya became a major crossing point after the 2011 fall of Muammar Gaddafi. Now, I did a video on Gaddafi about 2 weeks ago concerning how he renovated Libya's economy and took it to new levels, to the point where he wanted to create a gold currency that would be used by African nations only in order for them to trade their physical commodities without European interference. Now, when he died in 2011, the state of Libya changed. And this caused state control to collapse. It also emerged rival governments, militias, armed groups. You also had smugglers, traffickers, corrupt officials. All right, and these various groups, turned migration into a violent business. Hence why you see all the evil that's taking place amongst African migrants in Libya at this current time. All right, now many of these Africans, come from Nigeria. They come from Sudan. You have many of them that are coming from Eritrea, Somalia, Ethiopia, Ghana, Gambia. You have some of them coming from Mali and many other countries. And they travel through the Sahara, hoping to reach Europe, for a better life and better opportunities. But often what happens is when they're crossing through to Libya, they get caught up in a trap. All right, and that's what's been taking place since 2011. All right, now when these migrants come to Libya, all right, many of them are captured, they're robbed, they're beaten, they're detained, falsely detained, they're extorted. Many of them are actually forced to work without no pay. And one of the most horrific things, all right, that take place amongst both men and women is sexual abuse. Okay, and when I say sexual abuse, I'm talking about rape. Okay, now in addition to that, many are sold between traffickers as well. Okay, now there was a report in 2026, okay, concerning African migrants in Libya, all right, facing major abuse. Okay, and it was said that a violent business model was created where abuse is used to extract money from families, okay, from these African migrants, or to exploit labor and control people through fear. All right, so what you can see here is, I'm just going to say it plainly, you're seeing a repeat of slavery. Okay, now, I'm not going to go into it too deep, but if you do the history on the Arab slave trade, in fact, the Arabs were involved in the slave trade prior to the Europeans coming in and invading Africa and taking them as slaves. All right, for many years. Okay, from the time that Islam was an inception, from the time of the inception of Islam, you had many Africans being enslaved, forced to follow Islam. Okay, and many Africans that did not accept the Muslim way were forced into slave labor. All right, but as the time went on, many different parts of Africa, especially the north, were forced into slavery. All right, and there were many atrocities that happened amongst Africans under the subjection of the Arabs. Okay, so this is basically a repeat, really. All right, when you see these type of things taking place. Okay, now again, when you observe, because many of this footage you can see online, it is shown live. All right, and what you can actually see amongst these Africans are poor conditions. All right, you see thousands of Africans that are being detained, that are trying to cross the borders through Libya. And when you look at the conditions, all right, it's described to be overcrowded, filthy, and violent. All right, now many of these Africans, when they come, they're not coming with any form of security. All right, once they're detained, many of them have been reported to starve, meaning that they're not even being fed. Many of them have been beaten with cables and sticks, and many of them have been denied medical care. So when I hear about these things, again, it just takes me right back to the slave trade. All right, because you're seeing a parallel between the slave trade and what's happening of recent in Libya amongst African migrants. All right, it's also been reported that many of these families that cross over are separated from their families. Now again, that's another big indicator of slavery. And again, many of them are forced to call relatives while being tortured so money can be demanded for their release. This is an ongoing thing. All right, and this is still happening today as we speak. Now, another thing, again, just to rehash what I mentioned earlier, all right, many women, grown women and girls, young girls, face a lot of sexual violence. All right, a lot of sexual violence. So this is going into rape. All right, this is going into the mistreatment of African female captives, okay, including the young girls. This is what they have to suffer. All right, showing you the mass hatred of the people of Libya towards Africans crossing over their borders, or Africans in general. All right, for the most part, men are forced into construction, farming, cleaning, loading goods, or militia linked labor without pay. All right. So this is what is going on currently in Libya. All right. Now, one thing that really surprises me, okay, is the fact that, and I think this is probably the most, I want to say shocking, but it confused me in many ways, because when I look at the injustice that's taking place, I always think to myself, well, why is it taking place? You know, because surely there should be some form of there has to be some form of justice that has to be applied when these type of things are happening, you know. And you know, when I'm watching the news, right, especially when I first saw the footage of African migrants being abused in Libya, it shocked me, because the first thing that came to my mind is, why are they suffering like this? Why isn't no one coming to their aid? But I'm gonna get into that. All right. I will be touching on the reason why. Okay, and it actually shocked me when I found out this information. Okay, but just going back to Africans sold in Libya now. So, for many people that may not know, all right, there are slave markets. Okay, live slave markets that are live in Libya. Okay, up to this day, where Black Africans are being sold, all right, amongst various Arab slave traders. Okay, now there was a slave market scandal that became globally known in 2017. All right, and this was published by CNN. Okay, where they show African migrants being auctioned in Libya. This is in 2017. Now, when you think about slavery, this is exactly what was taking place amongst Black Africans. We're in 2017 now, all right, and there's live slave auctions taking place amongst Africans, showing you how wicked these people are, all right. Now, when it came to them being sold, all right, many of them, especially men, were reportedly sold for manual labor, all right. So that was the main reason why they were being sold, okay. And sometimes they were only sold for only a few $100s, showing you that how it shows you how precious slaves are to the Libyan people, that they're not even willing to spend high amounts just to receive one. Okay. And Africans were being treated not as refugees, but as workers, all right, and or commodities. Okay. So that's basically, they were being treated as commodities, not workers and not refugees. All right, so they weren't even seen to be asylum seekers. As soon as they touch Libya, you're getting straight to work. And that is the danger that many of these African migrants have to face when they cross the borders. All right, and it's sad, because the intention of them fleeing their home country is so that they can live a better life, and they're now being in a position where they now have to be in danger of their own lives by Libyan governors that are stopping them from crossing over to Europe. So they basically don't have no hope. All right, but many of them will still attempt to cross the borders with the hope that they don't become the slaves that they be hearing about with their other brethren that come over and cross to get to Europe. All right. Now, another thing I want to mention as well, all right, is that when it comes to many of these migrants that are captured, all right, many of them have been put to death in high numbers, especially those that made their way to Libya. Okay, now it's been reported that mass graves have been discovered, okay, including one in 2024 with at least 65 migrant bodies in southwest Libya, okay, and more graves in 2025 connected to trafficking sites. Okay, so this is showing you how bloody this situation has become. Over the years, many bodies have been found, okay, in the Sahara Desert, showing you how serious this thing is. So again, this thing here, when you hear about these things, or when I hear about these things, I lose my mind. But it also shows me the reality of what takes place amongst Africans today. Again, I'm not just basing it on Africa, I'm only speaking on it because of the topic at hand. But this is the real reality of what goes on, okay? And the only reason why I'm speaking on it again is because it's not commonly spoken about. All right, but it's still something that has to be spoken about. That's the reason why I'm mentioning it on this subject matter. All right, now the last point that I want to touch on is one of the major reasons why the Libyan government have been given the leeway, should I say, to do what they're doing without anyone objecting this, or any nation objecting this. So I want you to listen closely, all right? Now, one thing that I recently found out is Europe's role regarding African migrants crossing over to get to Europe, okay? Now, Europe plays a major role, okay? Now, when it comes to the EU and Italy, all right, they have actually supported Libyan migration to they've supported Libyan migration control to stop boats reaching Europe. All right, so what Europe has done is made an agreement with Libya to say, listen, if there's any Africans that have the intention to cross over using your border to get to Europe, we give you permission to intercept them and take them as slaves. All right, and the whole reason being, which is the obvious, is to stop black Africans from coming from Africa to Europe. Okay, now for me, that's crazy. All right, that is crazy that they play that role. All right, it's very crazy. But at the end of the day, it is what it is. You know, the truth is the truth, and it just shows me that nothing's changed. All right, I'm not going to elaborate on what I mean by that, but if you know, you know. All right. Now, the fact that many of these Africans are being detained by Libyans, all right, and are not being delivered out of this situation, okay, it says a lot about the current state of the world. All right, it does say a lot about the current state of the world, okay. And it just shows me that, because I kind of put myself in that boat. You know, we have it so good over here in the Western world, where we're given so much opportunities and we're given so much chances to redevelop ourselves. I don't think a lot of people appreciate what they have here. You know, like anytime I complain, I feel, especially when I think about subject matters like this, I don't feel good about myself, you know, because there's people that are really suffering out here and they actually have no hope. They're coming from Africa to here, risking their lives and their freedom just to live a better life. And we take our lives for granted, you know. So these type of things show me that I need to be more grateful for the opportunities that I have. And hopefully, if the Lord permits it, hopefully I'll be in a situation amongst those that have the same mindset to help their brothers that are being captured in Libya, to do something about the situation, you know, and support, you know. I mean, there may not be a lot that we can do, but you know, this is where we have to keep put our thinking caps on to support our brothers and sisters that are suffering like this, you know. But one of the main reasons why I touched on it is because yes, it may be common knowledge, but it's still something that's sensitive, and it's not something that's, you know, spoken about often. But hey, I brought it out today just to show you my viewpoint on it. So I hope that you understood what I brought out, and hopefully, you know, things do change. I really do hope that there is a solution where, you know, African migrants do not have to suffer anymore under the hand of Libyans, and you know, the hope for their life improving. Hopefully that, you know, there can be an easier way as to how this can be managed, so they don't have to go through what they go through. All right, but anyway, that's it from me. I hope that you like the video. Yeah, make sure you like, subscribe, comment, and support Alright, but yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. Appreciate you for your time. It's History Obscured. Peace, peace, peace.